everyone, and welcome to episode 281 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. What's up today, Richard?
Hey Seth, what's up? Just another weekend of spoilers and tournaments in the Magic world.
We have a full cast today. There is a ton to talk about. Before we get into that, though, we have another co-host in Krim. Hello, Krim. How are you this morning?
I'm great. I mean, there's a lot of Core 21 stuff, so I can't wait.
Yes, and that's one of our topics for today. So kind of overview time. We have Pro Tours this weekend, the first two of a 4 Pro Tour set over the next 2 weeks. So we're going to talk a little bit about standard Pro Tours. There were some bannings this week we wanted to get to, and then end with some M21 discussion, spoiler cards, all that stuff. So that's what we're talking about today. And then, of course, fish mail at the end. Don't want to forget about the fish mail. But before we get into all of that, a reminder that our show today is once again brought to you by Spikes Academy, the world's first MTG online academy. And they have courses that are created by the best players in the world, and they are designed to help you improve your game, whether you are trying to reach Mythic each season on Magic Arena, or you just want to beat your friends every draft. There are courses will help improve your game, and you can join today over at spikesacademy.com. So thank you so much to Spikes Academy for supporting the podcast. And let's talk some Magic. Let's start with Pro Tours. So these are kind of the replacement Pro Tours with the shift to all digital. We had Pro Tour Arena 1 and Pro Tour Arena 2 this weekend, 3 and 4 coming up next weekend. Standard format. What went down at these Pro Tours, Richard?
All right. Well, first of all, they're called Players Tours. Not to be confused. So Players Tour Online 1 and Players, can they not come up with better? What was the difference between 1 and 2? I'm not sure, but okay. We had 2 simultaneous Players Tours. 6 of 8 in one Pro Tour was Team Rec. 4 of 8 of the top 8 was Team Rec in the second Players Tour. Seth mentioned that for the first time ever, we had 32 copies, meaning all decks played 4 copies of a card in the top 8, and that card would be Growth Spiral, and then Breeding Pool, Banned Breeding Pool. So with Fires gone, with the shakeups, the quote unquote shakeups, the standard, the one left holding the bag, the winner was Teamer Rec, just demolishing the field. Really high metagame percentage, 40% just showed up. In one, 30% showed up in the other. So people brought Team Rec, and then they won with Team Rec, and then that was our top 8s.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers on Team Rec a little bit more in depth, in Players Tour 1 at least is the one I looked at, it was 40% on day 1, it went up to 46% on day 2, and then it was 75% of the top 8, and I believe also close to 60% of the top 32. Every metric you would look at, it was not only the most played deck, but was also overperforming what an average deck would do. So the numbers suggest it wasn't just heavily played, but it actually was really good. Honestly, personally, I would rather lose to Fires 40% of the time than Team Rec 40% of the time. At least Fires has the decency to just steal all your stuff on turn 4 and then you die, rather than grinding you out over the course of 100 turns. So I don't know. For me, this was kind of a disappointing series of Pro Tours regarding the state of Standard, especially Standard, where we just had bannings. It definitely wasn't that, wow, everything's wide open now and you can do anything you want. It's you play Team Reclamation now instead of Fires of Invention.
I mean, we kind of all saw it coming, right? There are still too many, problematic cards that needed to get banned. So naturally, as soon as those, Fires and Agent got banned, we would see, Reclamation take over. I mean, the card is very much so ridiculous, right? Wilderness Reclamation, being able to, net that much mana, with Expansion Explosion, stuff like that. So, and Growth Spiral, we you had mentioned, every deck played it because, well, we had already mentioned too, that the ramp in this standard is so good. And this Growth Spiral that draws a card, or Explore at instant speed, whatever you want to call it, is amazing when combined with cards like Uro. and going right into Wilderness Reclamation.
It really blows my mind that if you look at the top performing decks, which Temur Rec by far number one, and then you have some sacrifice decks, but after that it's Sultai Ramp, another like Growth Spiral Simic deck, Bant Ramp, another Growth Spiral Simic deck. So really the entire top tier of the meta is playing those cards, and that is after we've had 4 blue-green / Simic cards banned. Like, when Wizards was designing this format, they thought that this current group of Simic cards was fine, with also having Oko and Once Upon a Time in Veil of Summer and Agent of Treachery. That was their intention for this standard, was to have all of that happening at once.
To be fair, when Oko was in the format, Growth Spiral was not as big of a problem, right? Because instead of going to turn 4, you can just curve out at 3 and finish the game, okay?
I guess that's true.
I wonder, like, when this will all be. Remember, this is the fixed format, right? So they sat down. They're like, we're going to ban these cards. And then they presumably play tested after. And somehow they found Temur Rec to be a fair and balanced deck afterwards. So, like, I wonder when they're actually going to learn about. It's like trying to balance a Black Lotus or something. They're like, well, what if we made it 4 mana, but you discard a card or something? Like, now we're like, that's ridiculous, guys. Like, Black Lotus, Dark Ritual, these things are broken, right? When are we going to learn that 4 mana, like double your mana, triple your mana spells like Wilderness Wreck, Fires are bad. And then they're especially bad when you have 2 mana ramp spells to ramp into them so you can get there before you're dead, right? So I don't know. We talked jokingly before about just hitting the reset button, right? Like just ban 10 cards, 20 cards, right? Like fix it, because at this rate, who's going to play M21 cards, right? Is it going to beat Temur Rec? No? Then congrats. You don't need to buy any M21 cards, right? Just play your same deck again.
Who's going to play standard, period, if that's what the meta looks like? Like, I imagine, and that's the last thing you want with a new set coming out, but I imagine on Arena, you'll just have a lot of people like playing Historic, playing Brawl, people playing Modern. So I think that is, I wish I could see Wizards' internal numbers on how many people have actually been playing standard. It seems like they have to not be super great. And I bet that formats like Historic, which have been getting a lot more hype recently, are probably doing pretty well. So maybe what they got to do is they occasionally do these standard shakeup events on Arena where they have a list of like 20 cards. Like every top tier deck has at least 1 and sometimes like 2 or 3 cards banned. And it's supposed to be like, oh, standard if it was fun and didn't have all the horrible cards in it. Maybe that should just actually be the ban list. Like take the standard shakeup list and just be like, hey, this is our new ban list. Here you go.
Just accidentally apply it to the main queue for 48 hours and see what happens. let the people solve the meta for you.
I think that's actually what they would have to do, right? Like, I mean, there's still such a laundry list of cards that need to go. And like rotation isn't happening for quite some time.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering with Reclamation in specific. On one hand, you're like, oh, if you wait till September, Growth Spiral and Wilderness Wreck will rotate, but can you really not take action, especially to World of Arena? Like in the past when it was all paper, yeah, sure, standard is like dead in the summer. It's a slow time of year, but Arena is a 24/7, 365 game. Like people are constantly playing. I don't think those old justifications work anymore. So I kind of wonder if we're going to see another round of bannings like in the not too distant future just to keep people playing the format over the summer. I think the other question is, while we're on the topic before we move on, do you think that standard will be fixed at rotation? I guess that's my other question. Like, do all the problems go away, or is standard just so problematic and the fire design philosophy of just pushing everything super hard, like, is it just going to be something else that's 40% of the meta and everyone hates come September?
So like what rotates out here? We have War of the Spark.
Both Ravnica sets.
Yeah, both Ravnicas.
And the last core set, yeah.
So that leaves us with Eldraine still, right?
Eldraine's around, Ikoria, yeah, Theros, and M21, plus whatever Zendikar brings. So
Cat Oven will still be around?
Cat Oven, maybe. I believe it loses Mayhem Devil, which was a
right.
War of the Spark card, but a lot of the other pieces are still around, yeah.
Yeah, like if they still have access to cards like Oven and Cat, I think that's still something to look at. I don't know if it'll still be as powerful, but like it'll lose Bolas' Citadel. That's a card it'll lose that I think gives it a lot of power right now. But I definitely think that rotation does help. Yeah, like cause like like Nissa and Hydroichrasis, you have Wilderness Reclamation, you have so many things that are just gonna like fall out of the meta. And yeah, I think that's what's desperately needed right now.
I have no faith in this because the problem, like here we are experiencing certain issues, but the problem is just Wizards' design philosophy or whatever, right? Like we just have banning after banning after banning as they try to, push the card design into different areas. So like, yeah, maybe this, actual, Teamer Rec goes away, things like that, but then we'll just have the next broken decks to complain about on Zendikar and M21. So unless they've like really fundamentally shifted their design philosophy, like power down the sets or something like that, we're just gonna have the same problem, right? Just insert whatever new card from Zendikar you want to complain about for 12 months, and then here we go, right? So I don't know.
That's kind of my worry too. Like, yes, a lot of the currently problematic cards and decks are going to get powered down, but unless Wizards like changes their design philosophy, I kind of do worry that something new and just as egregious will be coming in Zendikar or whatever. So we'll keep dealing with it because I feel like this feels unprecedented to me. I've been playing Standard for a long time and we've never really had consistently broken standards before, right? Even going back to like Energy. When we had Energy was, the mechanic itself was kind of a miss, but eventually they banned the Energy cards and the format was like pretty decent once they powered down Energy. I feel like we're just in this constant like chain of brokenness where you ban one broken thing, but there's some other broken thing that's like just a tiny bit less broken than the last broken thing you banned, and then that immediately becomes the broken thing at the top of the format. And I kind of even worry about that. Like, what happens if they ban Teamer Rec? Like, you ban Wilderness Reclamation. Does that solve it? Or does just like Ramp is now with Uros and Growth Spirals and Nissas and Teferis, is that now like 50% of the meta? Like, can you even ban your way out of it without banning a whole bunch of cards? I don't know. I'm definitely concerned about the state of Standard at the moment, I would say.
Yeah. And that's pretty much how it goes, right? I mean, like with what we've kind of like, everyone's kind of talked about, like once you ban those cards, then it's like Teferi and like, like all of the Bant Ramp decks and all that stuff. That's when they, like, those cards will take over. So, oh boy. Yeah, there's a lot here that like needs to be done to fix the Standard format. But I do have faith, cause just like watch it, like looking at cards like, M21 stuff, Theros Beyond Death, like Anacoria. Like, I mean, outside of the companion stuff, I actually have a lot of faith that, 2021 Magic will actually be a way different place and probably a lot better.
I mean, they just printed Companion, like the most busted mechanic in the history of Magic, arguably. It's a little hard for me to buy that things are heading on the right track when the last set was the Companion set. Even though, like, I do see what you're saying. We haven't seen any egregious mana doubling spells, which is encouraging since Throne of Eldraine and Fires of Invention. The ramp that we've seen in Core Set 2021, Cultivate's pretty safe. I actually think Azusa is pretty safe. I don't think the extra land drop ramp spells are like super busted compared to what we have been seeing. So I can see some good signs of us heading in the right direction. But then at the same time, you got to weigh that against, like, how in the world did you print companions?
You know what we need? We need new set bingo. You know how people do like Players Tour bingo? Like now we're like, okay, 5+ cards banned, mechanic errata after the fact, $50 mythic, buy a box promo too good. Like we need someone make this bingo sheet and then we'll see how it plays out for M21 and Zendikar, because stuff's just going wrong all the time, man. I don't know how they're going to fix it.
I will say that I feel like Core Set 2021 is a relatively safe set. Just looking through that set, there's nothing that, at least right now, and who knows what develops or what synergies there are once we start playing with the cards, but there's nothing right now when I look over the set, now that we've seen almost a full spoiler, where I'm like, oh my god, that's going to be banned. There's no Once Upon a Times or no Uros where my jaw drops when I see the card and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's like just so above the curve. It's definitely a very powerful set, and I think it's one of the best core sets, but I don't know, do you see any like immediately problematic cards in Core Set 2021?
I don't clip this. Someone clip this, because we're always like, Oko seems good. Yeah, that's a lot of value. That's great. Right? We're like, Once Upon a Time, yeah, it's a free spell, but it's balanced by the fact you got to pay mana for it later. It's fine.
I think that like the things that I would be concerned about are maybe cards like Veto. You know what I mean? Like there's like combo potential. I'd keep an eye on anything that has combo potential.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. If it is like a synergy combo piece, that is a good point and a good argument. I will accept that. But I don't see anything that's just like broken based on rate, kind of in the way that like Uro was, or some of the other cards where it's just like, whoa, that costs way too little for what that does.
But if it's not broken, how's it going to challenge the current Kings of Standard? You say safe, I hear unplayable. Watsy hears no card sales. What do we do about that?
Ooh, yeah, that is I don't know, I guess you hope people like shrines a whole lot.
Someone's got to really force cats and dogs in Standard to sell the packs.
Like, I also could potentially see Chandra's Incinerator doing something.
Yeah, but that something is not really fair good, Magic.
Yeah, like that card seems pretty wild, so I don't know.
I think I'm higher on that in non-standard formats, but maybe it'll be pretty good in standard too.
Yeah, I mean, like, it just doesn't seem that difficult to like get down on like, turn 3 or something like that.
All right, we're totally off topic. M21 previews later in the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's get back on track. Any other standard/Pro Tour thoughts before we keep moving through our topics for the day? All right, let's talk about some banning. So, last week, Wizards posted an article called Depictions of Racism in Magic that included a list of 7 cards that were being banned, and also images taken down from Gather, replaced with a text about their kind of racist and depictions of racism on the cards. Richard, what cards got banned, and kind of give us the TLDR of this?
All right, I just actually searched, so the change is live. So if you search for these cards on Gatherer, you will see a message saying they removed it from their database because they don't want cards depicting hate and racism. But the 7 cards are Invoke Prejudice, Cleanse, Stone Throwing Devils, Proudest Gypsies, Jihad, Imprison, Crusade. So banned in all sanctioned Magic the Gathering formats. So basically all formats that Wizards controls. And then the EDH Rules Committee has come out to say that they're following with this as well. So banned in EDH formats.
So what do we think about this? This is different than any banning we've seen in the past as far as the reasons that the cards are being banned. What do you guys think about this change?
I think it's good. I think these mistakes, these cards, when you look back at them, are mistakes, right? Like maybe at the time they were printed, Magic was small, they didn't understand what they were doing, blah, blah. So rather than sweep them under the rug, they're like, okay, this is wrong, we're just removing them. I don't know what impact this has on Constructed whatsoever. Like, does anyone play any of these cards? Like maybe Crusade, right? So like there's like no gameplay impact. So it makes it a very easy, like, we don't want this representing our game, let's get rid of it. Where the question is they're reviewing all of their cards. So where do they stop? What other cards? Because there are other cards with questionable art in Magic's history that Magic would not be proud if it showed up in, like the New York Times or something like that, right? So I believe they're going to go remove these cards to have them not show up in the future, right? But none of these cards we play with today, right? Obviously everything in the modern era, like, the last couple years, follows what Wizards wants for their game, but we have stuff from like 25 years ago, which may not anymore.
Yeah, like I'm happy they went away, like they went and did this, but like a little bit like how Richard had mentioned, where does what else goes away, right? Because I do want, because like some people will find certain things a little more offensive than others, right? Well, on some of the older Magic cards. So, like, some people already didn't understand why some of these cards had to go, but, like, I definitely see why, right? Like, cards like Cleanse and things like that, definitely mistakes. And I wonder what else kind of follows with these cards. Like...
Yeah, Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, well, yeah, like, example, like, I don't know, they're... Like, I think Circle of Protection, like, Black, right? And all of those cards, and pretty much the artist that did Invoke Prejudice, like, there's a lot there. You know what I mean? That has, let's just go with a not so great art, right? By the artist that did Invoke Prejudice. So I kind of want to see those cards go with it. Like almost like all the cards he's done.
Yeah, I don't know where I come down on all this. I think the cards like Invoke Prejudice and Cleanse, and some of those cards are just very clearly offensive and very clearly had to go. Some of the other cards, I wasn't very educated on, like, Stone Throwing Devils, and Jihad even, for example, in Crusade. Those were ones where I didn't understand why they were offensive. And then from talking to people, I think they are still somewhat confusing to me just because, I've talked to several people, and heard several people of like Middle Eastern descent talking about how they actually view getting rid of like Stone Throwing Devils as kind of like deleting their representation in the game. So in this rush to do something that I think is good and well-intentioned, some people of that you would assume would be offended by some of these cards actually view it the opposite way. So I would say I think that the intention of this is good, and I think that these cards, it's hard to really even have too much of a debate about them needing to be a part of the game. But I would say I hope that Wizards maybe reaches out to experts, or community members that are potentially going to be impacted by cards as they're making these decisions, and try to do it in a kind of educated way. Because I think the worst way to do this, and it seemed like it happened really fast, but I think the worst way to do it is having like an intern going through Gatherer and just like writing down the card names that should be banned. So I hope they have a good process that involves members of these communities, in making the decisions about what cards should and should not be banned.
Yeah. And I think you highlighted both sides of the problem right there, right? Like if you're not aware why it's problematic, then it becomes normal to you. And then you kind of just spread it without knowing you're spreading something that could be problematic to other people. So, and then at the same time, other people find it not problematic, and then they find it the opposite, right? Offensive if you remove it. So it's a very complicated issue, and it's not something unique to Magic. Like everyone is dealing with this, right? So I don't really know what the answer is, and we'll see what WotC does, but I expect more cards to be affected after WotC does a full sweep. Like there are more cards where on closer inspection, the art is quite questionable. Which they haven't come, like these ones, like the name kind of just indicates like right off the card name, but there are cards where it's just the art, like Krim mentioned. So I think they're actually looking at every single piece of art and trying to identify.
Yeah, I think that's likely too, that there will probably be more changes. And I think the other kind of legitimate piece of criticism I think I heard from this move is this probably needs to be followed up by additional action, because the big conversation when this happened was kind of about Wizards hiring practices, the lack of diversity internally at Wizards, and then Wizards kind of was like, hey, we're going to ban these cards that depict racism. And I don't think that was something that people took as a bad thing, but people seemed fearful that this was Wizards' way of kind of like doing a super easy thing that looks like it really matters, although really it matters a lot less than having more, people of color and minorities working at Wizards and actually having a say in how the game is like being made and designed. So hopefully Wizards isn't viewing this as like the solution to a lot of the criticism they've been taking from the community lately. Anyway, any other thoughts on the card bannings and the depictions of racism in Magic article, or should we move on to some Core Set 2021 cards? All right. Richard, guide us through some M21 spoilers.
Another week of M21 has gone by, and we got the return of Garruk. So we talked about most of the Planeswalkers last week. So we have Garruk Unleashed, 2 green, 4 starting loyalty, +1. Up to 1 target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. -2, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. If an opponent controls more creatures than you, put a loyalty counter on Garruk Unleashed. -7, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, you may search your library for a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library.
I don't know. I don't think this card's that great, right? Like, I mean, I don't think that +1 is amazing. I mean, I guess if like mono green, like aggro takes off, which it kind of did this weekend over the Players Tour, but like, or at least it got more popular. But the -2, like it is interesting. Like a lot of these Planeswalkers now, like they're like we had mentioned before, are getting like design what it looks like to be in a multiplayer format, or it can be played in a multiplayer format, and it gets a little bit stronger in them. But I I don't think this Garrick's good there either, right? Because like a 3/3 isn't going to protect your Garrick from a whole table. So I don't know. This card just seems meh. The emblem's obviously great if you get to like ultimate, but you know, prior to that, you have to kind of just keep using Giant Growth that gives trample. And I don't know. I'd rather just use like the Vivian Arcbow Ranger.
I wonder though, like, cause Vivian will rotate in the fall. My first thought was I don't think this card is super good, but it is a little reminiscent of Vivian Arcbow Ranger. Maybe after rotation, this could kind of fill in that role where you can curve out and play Garrick, start pumping your creatures, giving him trample, getting in for a big chunk of damage. I don't know if it's actually as good as Vivian Arcbow Ranger. So maybe it's like not good enough to actually see play even in that context, but I would probably pick this to be the worst of the Planeswalkers in Core Set 2021. I think it might be the actual like bottom of the list for me out of the whole cycle.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, maybe if the -2 like created a wolf and then also like made it so that you put a counter on every Garrick Planeswalker you control, because then you kind of get to play with like, I don't know, like an Abzan Wolves maybe, or something like that, because you have bigger Garrick, right? Which also makes wolves.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool to kind of have a Garrick Wolf style deck. Although at the same time, Garrick's like pretty associated with beasts for the most part. So I can see like historically this kind of lines up with Garrick Wildspeaker and some of the older Garricks. So, but yeah, I think it would probably be more playable if it made wolves instead of beasts.
Yeah, a 3/3 beast is not what it used to be. Like, it's kind of a useless creature, right? Like that's not worth 2 loyalty, right? So card is bad. Like that beast needs like death touch, indestructible, fight something when it enters the battlefield or something. Like like Nissa just poops out, you know, like 3/3s as well, and also like, you know, they have vigilance and doubles your mana, right? Yeah, it costs 1 more. Or Oko did this with less mana, right? And like more loyalty. So that's the problem with Planeswalker power creep, right? Like if you want this playable, you need to make it absurdly strong. It needs a passive, or that beast needs to be something better. What if it was just like 2 beasts? Like, I don't know, right? Like if your opponent has more creatures than you, make 2 beasts. Is that broken?
I think that would be pretty cool.
I mean, it might be aggro like a big pain to play against Gary. He's like, oh, okay, 4 mana, 6 power, 2 blockers.
Yes, it'll continue to keep, aggro out of the meta, but...
I mean, aggro's already out of the meta, so can it get any worse for aggro decks right now?
I guess that's also true.
All right, next up, we have Terror of the Peaks. 3 red, dragon, mythic, 5/4, flying. Spells your opponent's cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. When another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target.
I really like this card. I think the artwork is amazing. I at least wish it had haste though, or something like that, right? Because I think just to keep up with today's standard, it needs to have haste.
I mean, it's not playable. They printed a whole cycle of these 5-drops that you have to untap with, and you just can't play 5-drops that you have to untap with in standard. That's not what 2020 standard is about. It's about things that do things right away that are really powerful. So it makes me so sad because the card is sweet, but how can you play this? Even though it's powerful, it reads powerful, like, it's just gonna get Teferi'd and Brazen Borrower and Elspeth Conquers Death, and you're gonna be super sad. We talked about it with Elder Gargaroth last podcast. Like, same exact stuff applies, in my opinion, to Terror of the Peaks.
This would have been the nuts, like, 3 weeks ago with Fires of Invention. Can you drop this with Fires? Like, Kenrith, like, deal 5 to something, give haste, like, it's just like an instant kill, right? Yeah, but without haste, it's not good, but with haste, isn't it too strong? Like, I don't know.
It would get played. I think it would definitely get played.
What if I growth spiral into Terror of the Peaks?
You might actually not be able to survive against a growth spiral deck with this card. So I don't know.
It reminds me of that dragon that was never played that does the same thing for all your dragons.
Whoa, Thunderbreak Regent?
Yeah.
No,
that card was played.
Scourge of Velkus, I think, is the one that deals damage whenever a dragon comes into play.
I was thinking of Thunderbreak Regent. And it was played fringe.
Play.
It was like fringe play, wasn't it?
No, that got played in Dragons in Standard.
It saw a decent amount of play. Okay, it was like Dragon Tribal, but I think what I do like about this card is like the possibility of playing it unfairly. Like, can you imagine reanimating a couple of these with Command the Dreadhorde along with some other, like a Rotting Regisaur or something? Like, that is going to kill people on the spot. Like, so I'm kind of excited about trying to cheat a bunch of creatures into play along with this and get almost like a Dragonstorm style combo killed back when you get to like, I don't know, get 4 Bogard and Hellkites or whatever and just 20 your opponent. I think maybe that's what you could do with this card. I don't like it as just like, hey, I'm going to cast this and let you Elspeth Conquers Death at every turn. But doing something unfair, like mass reanimation, I think that could be really fun.
Like what Mardu, like Wanderer combo, whatever, with Dreadhorde, and then try to bring all these back. It's a lot, you know, like that's the only way this could work is if there is some kind of crazy combo where you can reanimate them all, right? And like try to mill them all with like creeping chills and whatnot. But
you got to get your Garruk Unleashed emblem. Then you just get one of these every turn for free until your opponent dies. I will say, this card's probably great in Commander. I mean, Warstorm Surge, the enchantment version of this, is very close to a staple, according to EDH Rec, and dragons are also very heavily played, so I assume a lot of Commander decks will play it.
Yeah, I can see that. My thing is, like, yeah, like, when it comes to, like, Standard and how we had mentioned, like, Greater Gargadon or whatever, like, or Elder Gargaroth, and then, like, Terror of the Peaks and Baneslayer, like, the 5-mana Mythic cycle, a lot of these cards just don't seem great. So, I don't know, like, it's kind of sad, but, like, Terror of the Peaks, I guess, just doesn't make the cut for me. If it maybe had said abilities also, on top of, like, you know, spells that your opponents cast that target it.
It's really sad. Like, do you remember the reaction when Baneslayer was spoiled in, like, M21? Or, no, M10, and it was, like, the greatest creature anyone had ever seen, and it was like all over Standard. And now 10 years later, they bring it back in M21 and everyone's like, oh, this isn't even playable.
You know, it's funny. Like, they can put these in the welcome decks or whatever.
Like, yeah, like honestly,
decks.
it'd be a good uncommon for limited.
Oh my gosh, this said uncommon.
I mean,
limited.
This has to be how people felt though. An example, like the way we see Sarah Angel and Shivan Dragon, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Right?
I guess that's true.
Like, because it's like, oh, Sarah Angel, well, that's a joke, right? Like, why would anyone play this? Wait, that was the premier finisher? Or like Shivan Dragon? What?
And those literally are in welcome decks now. So maybe Richard's joke is not a joke. Maybe we're just like 10 more years away from Baneslayer literally being one of the welcome deck cards.
Well, with power creep and whatnot, we could probably expedite that to like probably like 4 years.
All right. Next up, we have 9 lives, 1 white, so 3 CMC. It's an enchantment at rare. Hexproof. If a source would deal damage to you, prevent that damage and put an incarnation counter on 9 lives. When there are 9 or more incarnation counters on 9 lives, exile it. When 9 lives leaves the battlefield, you lose the game.
Oh, I love this card. I'm really hyped for this card. Okay, so there's 2 reasons I'm hyped for the card. The big one is it is similar to Phyrexian Unlife as a lock piece with Solemnity, but Phyrexian Unlife, not legal in Pioneer, not legal in Historic. Solemnity presumably will be in Historic once Amonkhet Remasters comes out this year. So this allows you to play that enchantment, like, lock deck that we've played in Modern before in a bunch of different formats, which is really cool. In Standard, is this the answer to Team of Reclamation? Like, if you play this, how, like, I guess they can blast zone it. That's the sad part.
Yeah.
If they blast zone it, you lose the game. But, like, how do they kill you if you resolve this? Like, it's gonna be, that's a lot of expansion explosions or huge shark attacks to actually get 9 counters on that.
I mean, like, yeah, like, for right now, Blast Zone, like, and whatnot seem to work quite well. Also, just, like, countering it, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I feel like this is not good enough for Standard. I mean, like, will I play it and meme with it? Yes. But, like, I don't think this is what we're looking for to answer, you know, the teamer problem.
I mean, it can work as a tempo play. Like, if you slap this down and expect to win, like, no, in, like, a couple turns, they'll dig their way out of it. But if you, like, White Weenie or something, curve out and then slap this down and then, you know, kill him in the next 2 turns, I can see that happening, but...
Yeah, you have to
White
do that.
Weenie, right?
Right.
like that's the problem, right? Can you even win with White Weenie against Team of Rec? I don't know, right? Like, I don't think so.
It is 2 devotion pips.
I think the other issue, I don't think you can main deck it because against, like, Mayhem Devil, it sort of, like, it gives them a Furnace of Wrath because it only takes 9 pings for you to die, or like Scorch Spitter, like anything like that. It just actually speeds up their clock, I think, rather than slowing it down, which is awkward. I do like that apparently the art is famous cats through Magic's history. If you look closely at all the cats in the background, that's what people are saying, at least, is those are all actually referencing famous cat cards in Magic's past. And I can see like Savannah Lion's in there. I think Kahira's in there. I haven't figured out all the rest of them, but I think that the art is really cool.
I look at this, I see Mufasa and Scar. I'm like, what is this really? Like, what is this? All right. Next up, we have a goblin. Conspicuous Snoop. Red, 2/2 Goblin Rogue. It's a rare. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast goblin spells from the top of your library as long as the top card of your library is a goblin card. Conspicuous Snoop has all activated abilities of that card.
Oh, card's so good. This might be the best new card for older form. I think it is the best new card for older formats in the set. I think Conspicuous Snoop. So it's an easy inclusion in goblins, period. And there's some really easy like turn 3 combo kills. You just like play Snoop on turn 2, then you Bogart Harbinger on turn 3 to put Kiki Jiki on top of your deck. Then you can copy Snoop an infinite number of times. And then with your last untapped one, you copy Harbinger again to get like Mog Fanatic and sack all your Snoops to ping your opponent to death. So value card and infinite combo card. I think like modern and legacy goblins just like play this card because it's really good.
Yeah. This card is absolutely sweet. I mean, it's definitely a power boost that goblins needed also just for formats like Historic when you just had, I don't know, like Gem Palm Incinerator added to the format. So like, I do want to see more goblin support though. Like for Historic, this isn't enough to, I don't think, push it over to like a tier 1 deck by any means. Just because I think like Historic and Standard, we still need stuff like Goblin King and whatnot.
It'll be interesting to see what comes in Jumpstart, because I believe Goblins is one of the themes for Jumpstart, so fingers crossed, since that's legal in Historic, maybe we'll get some, like, Goblin Lords or other playables to make Goblins a real deck thanks to Jumpstart in Historic.
Yeah, like, because I mean, right now, Goblin Trashmaster is not the answer, right? Like, that's not...
No, that is not the answer for the Goblin Lord problem.
That is not what they are looking for. So, like, Goblin King, or, like, obviously, the ideal one would be, like, Goblin Chieftain.
Yeah, Goblin Chieftain's probably the best Goblin Lord. Also, if they want to go really deep, like Warren Instigator or like something like that for Historic would really up the power. Or even, I wonder if they would do Lackey. Would Lackey just be too busted to have the 1-drop that like dumps Siege Gang Commander into play on turn 2? Is that like over the top for Historic?
I would say like it would definitely change how people play, because then you'd have to play like 4 Disfigures, right, in the main. And then once like Fatal Push gets reprinted with Amonkhet remasters, or Ether Revolt, I guess, and whatnot. That will have to be in the format, because there's no Bolt, there's none of those, like those 1-drop answers like Shock, Disfigure, Fatal Push. Those will then be an all-time high.
Yeah, maybe Lackey's a bit too good. Instigator's probably fine though, because it's a 2-drop, so you have a lot more time to react to it or get a blocker on the table to block it or whatever.
Right. Like Instigator, not as big of an issue, I would say. I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe that might still, like, I would say Instigator is something that you would still have to be like, have to be cautious about, but like Lackey is just too much.
And Ether File. Maybe they'll put Ether File in the
that can't happen.
And then we're off and running.
Humans just becomes like the modern humans, right? Like if they add like the Ether Vial.
It really would, yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Sublime Epiphany. 4 blue, 6 CMC. It's an instant rare. Choose one or more. Counter target spell. Counter target activated or triggered ability. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. Target player draws a card.
I definitely like this card art-wise. All the things it does. It is way too expensive and very much so not standard playable.
6 mana, like super cryptic command. Although some of these options are questionable, like cloning your creature or countering your targeted activated
clone
ability.
A shark. You can clone a shark.
The Agent of Treachery is not here anymore.
That's true.
Getting to choose them all, though, is actually powerful. I think The big issue is like Mystical Dispute is not rotating in the fall, and that seems like I think it's the number one most played card right now. 54% of decks. Last time I looked at our format staples page, seems like a really easy, clean answer to a 6-mana counter spell.
I mean, between that,
thing, right?
Well, yeah, there's that between Teferi, Mystical Dispute, and Miscast. Like,
yeah.
if we're not talking about Dispute and it ever gets to that point, then Miscast gets played, right?
Yeah, I think it's just not. I think Commander. I think that's the go-to for cards like this. I think I would play it in a lot of blue Commander decks, but standard-wise and like modern, I saw some people were like, "Ooh, this will be sweet with Torrential Gearhawk." I'm like, yes, it is, but how many 6-drops can you possibly pay in your like Pioneer deck and still be able to function?
I mean, will I try it? Yes. Will it work? Probably not. And I'll oftentimes be loaded with a bunch of 6-drops in hand, right? Because between this and Gearhulks.
Yes, you'll have just like the handful of 6-drops by the inverter you.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Hear me out. What about Teamer Rec? Would they ever play this?
You know, if there is a deck to play it, yeah, like they are the deck that would, right? Some Growth Spiral deck definitely could play this. Like Bant Control.
Will Teamer Rec be in the format by the time M21 releases in 2 weeks? I think that's a better question.
Well, I mean, the answer to that is what if you want to know what people want, the answer is no. Like, it will not be here. But there's a strong chance that it could.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe one of those decks could play it. I'm just really skeptical with so many people playing Mystical Dispute that it takes a lot to cast a 6-mana blue card right now.
I mean, people played Mass Manipulation when Mystical Dispute's in the form. People gonna try to force their way through with a Teferi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, it's easy. Mystical Dispute doesn't matter if there's a Teferi.
Yeah, all right. Well, will you play this in your Teferi deck, Scrim?
No, unless I'm playing Growth Spiral. Oh, I'll try it, yes. 100% I'll try it. But then I will get Mystically Disputed, or I will die before I even get to this because I never play it. I choose not to play decks with Growth Spiral, usually.
What if you play Grixis with Growth Spiral? Just flash green.
You see, that is not Grixis, you know? That's way too much value for a Grixis deck. You need to calm down there, all right? We don't play cards that actually do a silly amount of things. One-for-one gaming is all I want.
Next up, we have Rada, Heart of Keld, 1 red green, so 3 CMC, legendary creature, elf warrior, 3/3. As long as it's your turn, Rada has first strike. You may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may play lands from the top of your library. 4 generic red greens, so 6 to activate. Rada gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of lands you control.
I think this is pretty good.
I also think it's pretty good. To me, this feels like an aggro Courser of Crewfix. It's very similar. A Courser, of course, more toughness, gains you life, so better in kind of a mid-rangey deck, but I could even see like maybe Gruul mid-range or a deck like that playing it. And we do have Dryad of Ilsean Growth. We do have Azusa entering the format, and Rada really loves things that let you make extra land drops, so you can potentially do some like Fabled Passage shenanigans of changing the top card of your deck and make a whole bunch of land drops off the top of your deck each turn. So, and then you got this pump ability, which is like legitimately frightening. If you get up to 6 mana and you just have no action going on, that's gonna make Rada a 9/9. Can you imagine that with Embercleave? Like Embercleave and that pump ability, that's gonna kill anyone. So I actually think Rada is pretty standard playable and definitely Commander playable too.
I think Teamer Rec could play it.
No, you can like Rada plus Azusa plus Experimental Frenzy plus Steamkin and like try to go off and do something.
That's too much work. That's too much work. You bring this out of the sideboard of Teamer Rec and you're like, hey, I'm going to kill you with this pretty soon. I've got a lot of mana.
That's your way to get through 9 lives. You have a attacker to get those counters on 9 lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know what? Like getting the lands off the top of your deck, great. Teamer Rec can really benefit off that. And all the ramp decks.
All right. We alluded to this card earlier. Let's talk about Chandra's Incinerator. 5 generic, 1 red. So 6 CMC, 6/6 creature elemental. It's a rare. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. Trample. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls.
Well, luckily that second part doesn't allow them to hit, your opponent's face. But, I think that, obviously, as Seth mentioned earlier, in older formats where you can go, Bolt, I don't know, Lava Spike or something like that, that you could easily get this down for 1 mana, right? On turn 3. Even in Standard, though, I think right now you can, you still have, what's that? I already forgot. It's been so long since I've seen an aggro deck that, that one spell from Return or Guilds of Ravnica, the one where if you deal, it has Spectacle and it costs 1 mana to deal 3, right?
Skewer the critics, and you have Risk Factor. I guess that's a little expensive, but there is some bird floating around. You're right.
Right. You could definitely get this on turn 4. I would say reliable.
Shock Skewer. That's 5 damage. Play this for 1 mana. You could do it on turn 3.
Yeah, it's still very much so a possible line of play. I think this card is great.
Yeah, I actually think this card is great too. I'm definitely especially high on it in older formats where you have lightning bolts, you have gut shots. There's ways you can, it seems like, really consistently play this by turn 3, or maybe if you want to go deep, even by turn 2 in those formats. And then it's a 6/6, it dodges Fatal Push, it doesn't die to lightning bolt. It seems like it's pretty good against a lot of the removal that sees play outside of Path and Swords. So I'm definitely high in it for older formats. And I mean, even the thing about this card is, though, even if you can cast it for 3 mana, that's still pretty above the curve. A 6/6 for 3, that's still a decent creature, even in 2020 edition of Standard. So in Standard, I think the bar is a little bit lower for this to get over to actually see play. I don't think it has to be 1 mana on turn 2, but 3 mana on turn 4 or something, whatever. That's still a decent card.
I mean, we have 3 mana 7/6s in Standard, right? But the one thing here is that card is very medium. It's just alright. But that's because it doesn't have trample. This would be 3 mana for a 6/6 with trample for 1 less power. And the decks that are probably trying to play this card and whatnot, the opponent's going to have a lot to deal with. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of burn being sent their way. So then on top of trying not to die to simple burn spells, they're probably going to pack things like negate and whatnot, right? But they also have to be able to answer a 6/6, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, my boy Tarmogoyf is not having a good, imagine this nut curve in Modern. Turn 1, Rift Bolt. Turn 2, any burn spell, 6/6 trample, right? Okay, I can't push it, right? I can't even Lily it yet unless I'm on the play. So dead.
You can block it with Tarmogoyf and then take damage.
Yeah. I can chump block with my 2/3 Tarmogoyf because they had to cast at least 2 spells, right? Maybe a sorcery instant if I'm lucky.
That would be hilarious if they don't even target your Tarmogoyf because that's how much of a non-factor it is. With all their burn, I'll just send it to you instead. And then play this.
So EDH, you could just Perforos and then cast this for 1 mana. There's plenty of ways to trigger this. Don't we have... Is that card still a Standard? The 1 mana 1/3 that gets pumped whenever you deal non-combat damage? The flyer?
Yes.
Oh, Chandra's thing.
Yeah.
Chandra something, yes.
I don't know if you can make some janky burn deck and try to ramp these things out. But it does do a lot. You burn your opponent's face, you can then, once it's on the battlefield, you can then burn their planeswalkers and creatures, and then this thing tramples as well. It's a lot of damage once this thing hits as well.
Yeah, Cavalcade is non-creature damage, and Chandra's can deal non-creature damage or non-combat damage. So there's definitely ways to make it work. I think the commander point is, Torbrand and Cavalcade, that gets the price down very easily. I think the commander point's a good one too, though. It seems insane in something like Perforos. You play 1 creature, everyone at the table takes 2 damage. So then this is 1 mana. Then you play that, and that's a bunch more damage, and you get to start shooting down the board. It seems like you can easily turn this into a Wrath with the right commander, or Heartless Hitasugu, or whatever. There's so many ways that you could build around this in commanders. I think this card is just really good kind of across formats.
Terror of the Peaks.
Right.
It deals non-combat damage. Right?
It
you
does.
Can start sniping things.
It does. That's totally very good.
I'm actually really excited about this card, and I think it's going to do stupid broken things. I feel this is going to be Delve-esque, where that mana cost is like 1 or 2 most of the time, and not what it says on the card.
And I think that's what's needed to make it playable, so it doesn't just
They're really trying hard to make like red playable here with like all these cards. All right, last card I'm going to sneak in here is Liliana's Standard Bearer. 2 and a black, 3/1 rare. Creature, zombie knight, flash. When Liliana's Standard Bearer enters the battlefield, draw X cards, where X is the number of creatures that died under your control this turn.
I think this is good. I mean, like, we'll see how like much you can actually flash it in when they're like now, like decks like, I don't know, let's just say like Cat Oven and whatnot, and decks that would probably try this over like, I don't know, Midnight Reaper maybe. Like you do have to wonder like, okay, well, I guess I do care about Teferi now, right? Like those decks didn't care before, right? But now Teferi's shutting this off does matter.
I kind of feel like this is Midnight Reaper replacement after rotation, because we'll be losing Midnight Reaper and Teferi. And then it does have relevant creature types. Like Knights are mostly from Throne of Eldraine. We've even seen Mardu Knights kind of being a like legitimate 3rd tier deck. This is like nice Wrath protection there. You could even play it in some sort of like Dimir Flash deck, which maybe could be good after rotation. So for me, I think this card is good, but I'm expecting it mostly to make an impact after rotation rather than immediately.
Yeah, definitely something that's going to be good after rotation. Although, like, you can, like, example, like, you can play Black Lance Paragon and then go into this. There's actually, like a like Dimir Flash Knights potentially. Who knows?
When did Knights get all this flash? Like, why can we build a Flash Knights deck?
Soon. Weird. I mean, we have Leyline of Anticipation. You can go real wild if you want. You could have always done that.
It's like, I'm playing Flash. Are you playing Simic or is it? Oh no, I'm playing Zombie Flash.
I mean, they won't be ready for it.
I'm excited for EDH for this card. I'm ready to draw like 50 cards when my super wide board gets wiped with this. Like just 3 mana, draw a million cards. The key thing here is you don't lose any life. A lot of times these effects cause you to lose life. So I'm like, I'd like to draw 30 cards, but I don't want to lose 30 life in the process. So you could just do this and draw a bunch of cards.
And man, like the people that are looking to play this card and the decks that are looking to play this card definitely cannot wait for Cry the Carnarium to rotate.
oh yeah, that's right. That's a thing.
Like that, this does not feel good against, because it's just, here you go, 3/1.
This doesn't help when you get Settled the Wreckage either.
Yeah.
All right, let's answer some fish mail before we run out of time today. I think that's all for our M21 cards. Although, we will have the full set, I believe, tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that on MTGPreviews.com if you want to see the full spoiler once it goes up tomorrow. But Richard, fish mail us, please.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. I love Contempt. I'm thinking of buying a commander deck built around Mael and Zerda, but I'm worried the companion might get another errata, especially because of speculation of more companions in the future. How likely do you think another errata would be?
Ooh. So we didn't actually get to talk about this during our kind of overview of the Pro Tours, but one thing I was planning on mentioning, but forgot to mention, it does seem like the errata has powered down companions to a reasonable level. They're still seeing like a bit of play, but they definitely are not in every deck and dominating the format. So early results, I would say, I think companions are probably safe where they're at right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that there. I mean, the decks that were okay with playing it already didn't like deploy their companion to like turn 30 or something like that. So like Yorion or whatnot, those decks, like, I think the Yorion decks can definitely play Yorion, like turn 9. So they're not too concerned about it.
All right. Chris P. Jonas, thoughts on white-bordered cards? I personally think every core set should be white-bordered.
Well, hold on. I actually don't think we really, answered the first question. But so hold on, let's backtrack to that real quick. I think that, the first question to answer, the next change, if there is another change, I think that at that point, is it not just it just gets banned.
Yeah, I can't imagine they would have another, like, oh, it's going to cost 7 mana now for you to put it in your hand or something. Like,
right.
I think if they have to do something again, I don't think they will at this point, but yeah, I think the next step would probably just have to be banning them.
I mean, I thought we answered the question that they're powered down sufficiently so that they won't get another banning. I don't think they're that overpowered, right? I don't think.
No.
I think if there are some problematic ones, then they would be spot banned as opposed to another errata on like how the companion works. Like, can you imagine sitting down and you're like, oh, no, that's not the rule. It changed twice. This is the new rule. Like, you're like, what? Right? So I don't think they're going to touch it again. I think that was a one-time emergency thing because all formats were on fire. And I think the formats have kind of come back and they're not on fire anymore. So,
well, they are, but their own way.
Just for different
reasons. Different sources for the flames.
But yeah, like I would say that if anything happens again and any changes have to happen again, it just would get banned. Whatever it is, the card, the mechanic, who knows? But
all right.
To answer this question, I say yes to white border.
So
I mean,
what was the original? The original reason is they wanted to identify the cards as reprints, right?
Yes. But core sets used to be exclusively reprints. Now we have core sets that are a mixture of new cards and reprints. But back when they were doing the white border, they were all reprints in core sets.
I think they should just do it. I'm waiting for like collectors, boosters, crim edition. All cards are just like the normal set, except they're just white bordered. Like, why not express yourself?
Yes, I will. And I would take all of those. Those are perfect.
Well, if we can do white borders, then I want old borders. I think that's only fair.
I think old borders.
That's what the foil would be, right? Like with like okay. we're talking like the stamp and everything too.
Okay, I'm down with that. You can, if I can have old border foils, you can have normal white border cards, and then we both win.
Yeah.
On board.
See, like, because like example, the old core sets, right? Like the white bordered cards in foil were just, you know.
That's true. That's a good point.
I just had the most genius idea I've ever had. You know how in M21 there's like 9 Teferis? And the only thing different is like the weird thing he's drawing in front. What if each Teferi had a different border from Magic's history? Oh, how sweet would that have been? He's traveling through time. He has like the old alpha border. Yeah. He has like a white border. He has like whatever, you know, all the different variations of card borders. That would have been amazing.
That would be amazing on so many levels. Yeah.
That would make me care about the different versions because currently I still haven't really figured out how they are different from each other, but that would actually solve that problem.
Well, I really wish the prices were very different between the versions. So you have one, you're like, which version is this? And you're trying to like figure out the art. All right. A lot of companion questions. People are really concerned about companions being nerfed a second time. Kylio Meters, in honor of course at 2021, what's the crew's favorite Seth mispronunciation? Mine is Amulet.
Amulet.
I don't even know. That just sounds wrong. I don't know why now.
I think. Jeez.
Actually, we're in honor of Core 2021. We're about to maybe have one right now. Can you, can you read or how would you pronounce this card, Seth? Jolrael Munvali Recluse.
There's actually a video I posted on my Twitter of me making the spoiler video for this card and spending like 30 seconds saying the name wrong on repeat before I eventually landed on one I was comfortable with.
Comfortable with or correct?
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sure it still wasn't correct, but it was as close as I was going to get, so I just went for it. Eventually, like, sooner or later, you just got to record the video. You can't just spend 2 hours trying to pronounce Yoriel. Is it Yoriel or Joriel? I think I actually am probably pronouncing that. I said Yoriel. Is it Joriel or Yoriel?
I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Or maybe.
So I went with Yoriel Munwuli Recluse.
Well, it'd be Yolrael, right? Because it's not Yoriel. It's either Jolrael or Yolrael.
How do you say the middle word?
Munvali?
Munvali? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was kind of close. I used to just go like that.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, because like isn't it Munvali Acid Moss, right?
Yeah, the land destruction spell.
Yeah. See, so like I was more so wondering how you'd say the first name.
I swear that Wizards does this just to troll me. Like, they could have reprinted any character in Magic's history, and it's got to be the one with the unpronounceable name. So I think they do that on purpose, just to make me pronounce them, and then laugh at me at Wizards that day. Like, ha ha.
They should have, the token inserts, like where they put the ads or whatever. They should have like a little pronunciation guide for like the character names that have unique spellings. Because everyone just remember we're like Garuk. Like, I don't even know what the heck his name is to this day, right? Or they changed it in the middle of Pro Tour coverage and things like that, where they're like, oh, we're pronouncing, is it Kalitas or Kalitas? Who knows, right? So they should just have a little pronunciation guide. Like, here are our important story characters, and here's how you say their names.
That's a really good idea, Wizards. If you decide to do that and you need some help, let me know, and I would be glad to help.
All right. Last question. X Schwarzblut. What about a morph sorcery where you can activate whenever an opponent casts a creature that meets a certain condition that would counter that creature spell? Like a trap hole trap card from Yu-Gi-Oh! A fair way to handle. I don't know. So you just, how does a trap card work? All I know is you've activated my trap card, but what does that actually do?
Essentially, it's an instant spell almost. Well, no, I guess they eventually made quick play.
So would this be like, is what the question's saying? Like, you have a morph card and it says, whenever your opponent casts a whatever green creature, flip this up and counter it? Is that what they're going for?
I think it's like a delayed trigger or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's like how Trap Hole works and like Yu-Gi-Oh's like you have to play a creature or something, and then once you play the creature, you get to activate my trap card, and then it goes falling in, and then it dies. So, that could be pretty interesting. I mean, I'd like to see stuff like that, but that's because I always liked Morph. So I might have a bias there, but like, I don't know, like, do you like, is there a demand for Morph cards out there? Because I've always liked Morph, but I wasn't sure if like other people also enjoyed it.
I think some people really like it. I think I like the older Morph cards. I felt like when they returned to Morph recently and made them all like really expensive to flip up so no one could get blown out by them, that made me like it a little bit less, because I thought that was part of the fun of Morph, is you don't know and sometimes you do get blown out. But I do like the mechanic, and I think I would be fine with the card that the question was describing. Like, I think you could do stuff like that, and I don't think it would be inherently broken. I don't know if it'd be frustrating for some people to play against. I could imagine new players, like, being pretty frustrated that their stuff just gets randomly countered by this morph creature that flips up for no mana being spent or anything, but I think it would be cool.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't even know if it's that big a deal, to be honest with you, because, like, if it's the only, cause, like, how it played out last time when we were in cons, it was like most likely Den Protector, right? Like 90% of the time it was probably Den Protector or like, I don't know, Sagu Mauler. Yeah. Will Bender if we're talking like when it was in standard or like EDH, but like when it was in con standard, oh man, I was so terrified of it being a Sagu Mauler. So like,
we have this card, right? It's like Mind Break Trap. It's just not on the battlefield, but like they activate a condition and then you're like, you activated my trap card, and you cast it for free. Or maybe like Submerge, stuff like that. It's just not obvious that it's sitting there waiting to be cast, though. It's like
Morph cards are pretty much trap cards, though, right? Like when it comes to setting them face down and then pass.
It would be I think it would be cool, especially if you couldn't flip them naturally. Like, there's no way to flip them. You have to depend on your opponent meeting the condition, and then they flip around. I think that could be an interesting way to return Morph in the future. I think
that'd be really cool. That way you don't, like, it has no cost, so you don't have to spend mana to do that. So essentially what is a free, you pay 3 mana to get a 2/2, but that could be kind of bad also, actually. Like, as in, like, unplayable.
Yeah, that I guess it would depend on what the conditions were. If they were too hard to meet, then you're mostly just getting a 3 mana 2/2, which is not super good.
All right, cool. I'll shock it. All right, that's great.
there should be a way to defuse the trap.
Maybe it says whenever your opponent casts a shock, flip this up and you win the game. You never know, Grim.
There you go. Then we just make it so that it's too good. Like, I feel like that's the one, like, that's how that card would go, right? It's either the worst or the best card ever.
Yeah, that might be how it plays out, actually.
You can do, like, Teferi Trap, like 2 mana, face down. When a player So like when a player activates the ability, or when an opponent activates the ability of a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. And then that flips up. But when a player casts a creature spell, like destroy the trap. And then do something like that so that your opponent actually has counterplay where they're like, oh, wait, is that a Teferi trap? Let's not activate Teferi. Let's cast the creature. Or, you know, you would always have like the opposite trap, right? So that you can somehow try to make your opponent choose between creature or planeswalker or something to get around the trap.
You know how upset people would be if this became a thing? Because like you gotta remember, people don't like playing around counter magic. So like, if imagine me just going, haha, what if I build a counter magic deck with trap cards? like people are just gonna like throw their computers and like cards out the window, right? Like,
all right. That's all the fish mail we have this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 281 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. And we will be back next week. Oh, yes. And thank you to Spikes Academy, by the way, for supporting the podcast today. And on that note, we will be back next week to talk about whatever goes down in the world of Magic. So, until then, have a wonderful week. And this is the crew signing out.